Do you want to gear up with jerkbaits, but you don't want to spend a lot of money doing so? Well, today I'm going to talk all about budget jerkbait options. Now, if you've been watching my videos this spring, you know that I've been throwing a lot of jerkbaits this season, and quite frankly, I'm catching a lot of fish on them. Well, at the beginning of the season, I decided to pick up a lot of new jerkbaits, and more specifically, I wanted to buy budget options. The reason that I personally want budget options is because A, I don't like fish tournaments. I'm not fishing for money, so it doesn't really matter that much. And B, I've got pike up in my waters. Here in Michigan, there's pike roaming the shallows. I don't particularly want to spend $25 on a jerkbait and have it bitten off by a daggum toothy critter right away. I tell you what, you can spend a ton of money on jerkbaits. There are jerkbaits out there for over $25, and I'm not going to tell you that that is a bad spend of money because those jerkbaits are really, really nice, but I am going to tell you this. For me, it doesn't quite make sense, and I'm sure if you're watching this video, you might not think it makes sense either. In today's video, I'm going to be comparing 5 different budget jerkbaits, all in the $7 to $10 range, and I am going to be talking about what I like and don't like about each, and so hopefully at the end of this video, you have a better understanding of what might work best for you. I suppose now would be a good time to share with you what jerkbaits I picked up. In no particular order, I've got the Berkeley Cutter, the King KVD, the Lucky Craft Lightning Pointer 98XR, the Yozuri 3DB, and the Rapala Shadow Rap. I gotta be honest with you, I actually like all 5 of these jerkbaits, but I definitely have a couple of favorites, so I'm gonna get to those in a minute. In today's video, I'm gonna try something new. I've never done anything quite like this in a video before. I'm going to put a chart over here, and essentially I am going to score each jerkbait on 3 different factors. I'm gonna score them each 1 to 5, so technically speaking, the max score would be 15, and the minimum score would be 3. The first factor that I'm gonna rank these jerkbaits on is action. Does it have a nice action that draws fish in? The second factor that I'm going to rank them on is whether or not it runs true. Essentially what I mean by running true is, does it do what it says it's going to do? If it says it's going to suspend, how well does it suspend? If it says it's going to dive 2 to 4 feet, does it dive 2 to 4 feet? So on and so forth. Now I do want to make something clear. Obviously water temperature can impact whether or not a jerkbait suspends, floats, sinks, whatever. That being said, all of these jerkbaits were tested in numerous water temperatures varying anywhere from 40 to 50 degrees. In my opinion, 40 to 50 degrees is key jerkbait season. So ultimately, if these baits don't do what they're supposed to do in that water temperature, then at the end of the day, I'm gonna score them as such. And then the last thing I'm gonna score them on is what color selection is offered. And the reason that's so important is because jerkbaits, out of any other hard baits, color is one of the most important things. The reason being is that a lot of times you will work that jerkbait and you will let it sit for 6, 8, 10, 12 seconds. And so those fish have a great opportunity to get a look at it. So having a good quality finish in the right color can make a world of difference in how many bites you get. Okay, now that you got the rundown, I tell you what, let's get started. In no particular order, I decided let's go ahead and rank the Lucky Craft Lightning Pointer 98XR. Now, if you've been watching my videos, you know that I named this particular bait Larry, and Larry caught me a lot of fish this year. To be honest, this Lucky Craft Lightning Pointer pretty much has the exact action that I'm looking for in a jerkbait. When I pull it down, it wiggles and dives, but when I start to jerk it, it twitches to the left, it twitches to the right, but it doesn't ultimately like end up nosediving forward. It doesn't nosedive down. It doesn't seem to roll over on its sides. It has a pretty darn consistent action, and it has enough side to side to where I feel like it's getting those fish to look at it. I'm a fan of the action. 5 out of 5. The next factor is whether or not it runs true, and this is where I'm going to be super hard on this jerkbait. This little jerkbait right here says that it gets down to 6 to 7 feet. This jerkbait features a pretty long bill, so it does effectively get down to some of those depths. That being said, they also claim that this is a slow sinking jerkbait. Now I've fished this thing in the low 40s all the way up to probably 50s range, and every single time I fish it, it consistently floats. That's doing exactly the opposite of what they say it's supposed to do. Again, I know that water temperature can affect it, but at the end of the day, sub 50 is where a jerkbait shines. So in my opinion, Lucky Craft should have calibrated this to slow sink at about 45 degrees of water temperature. At the end of the day, this thing catches fish, and there are modifications you can do. That being said, it is kind of frustrating when a bait doesn't run true right out of the package. I added a suspend dot to the bottom, and it still honestly floats. That being said, it has slowed that float down a lot, and it has increased the amount of bites I got. If you ever want to modify a jerkbait to slow its float, make it suspend, make it sink, so on and so forth, there's a couple ways of doing that, and one of those is suspend dots. I do really like these things. I will link those in the description below if you are interested. Okay, so what score am I going to give it for running true? I'll go ahead and give it a 2. The only reason I'm not giving it a 1 is because it does probably get down to the depth that it's supposed to. Okay, the last factor, color selection. Now I only picked up one of these Lucky Crafts, but what I'll do is I'll go ahead and screen record on my computer, and I will show you the color selections that they have on their website. All right, so I am now screen recording on my computer, and essentially I can get a good look at all of their different color options. Now when I look at color selections, I really want to see, does it have an option for all situations? What I mean by that is, do they offer colors that are going to work in cloudy conditions, sunny conditions, muddy water, clear water, bluegill imitators, shad imitators, so on and so forth. Really, you want a variety of colors to where you can meet really any angler's needs. Now, when I look at these Lucky Craft colors, I gotta be honest with you, I feel like they are some of the best jerkbait colors. Lucky Craft has been doing jerkbaits for a very long time, so they clearly know what they're doing. They've got flashy options like this when you really need to draw those fish's attention. They've got supernatural options like this right here, this bluegill type color. They've got some trout options that actually look pretty darn good. They've got stuff for dirty water like this Nishiki color. Nishiki, to me I just call that clown, but you know, they've got a fancy name for it. Ultimately what I'm seeing here is a variety of colors that are going to work in numerous occasions, but not only that, I see really high quality finishes. They don't look cheap, they look like something a bass straight up eats in their natural habitat. These colors, as far as a less than $10 jerkbait goes, are kind of unheard of, I'm gonna be honest with you. I'm gonna give this a 5 out of 5 as well. That makes Lucky Craft score a total of 12. All right, Lucky Craft, 12 out of 15, that's pretty darn solid, and that's a great way to get it started. Now, let's switch to the Yozuri. Here we have the Yozuri 3DB. This thing was like $7, and it looks pretty much like a traditional jerkbait. Now, to be completely transparent, I have only caught one pike on this thing. I was not able to catch a bass despite throwing it a decent amount. And quite frankly, I'm gonna go ahead and jump right into action, and I am going to rate this one pretty harshly. I don't fully know how to explain it, but this thing just does not have the action that I'm looking for in a jerkbait. When I would go to twitch it, it didn't really feel like it had that same hard, erratic twitch side to side. It felt like it kind of skated a little bit, and it kind of rolled over on itself. And I don't know if that's due to the fact that it's a little bit flat-sided and kind of bulbous towards the top. I'm not sure what causes it, but ultimately it doesn't really have that traditional erratic action of a jerkbait. Again, I want to be clear that these ratings are totally subjective. Just because I don't personally like it doesn't mean that you won't, and I'm not saying it doesn't catch fish, because I do think it is promising, and I guarantee I'll be able to catch bass on it in the future, but for me, I just didn't have the same action that I'm personally looking for. So because it kind of rolls over on itself, and it doesn't really have that strong erratic twitch side to side, I'm actually only going to give this one a 2. Now on the flip side, let's talk about whether or not it runs true. This jerkbait claims that it's supposed to dive 3 to 5 feet and it's supposed to suspend. Honestly, 3 to 5 feet is like kind of that perfect money range for a jerkbait 99% of the time, and it definitely hits that. So plus there. Additionally, I fished this thing in the same conditions as all the other jerkbaits, that 40 to 50 degree water temperature, and I tell you what, this thing consistently suspended quite well. So for that reason, I am going to give this a 5 on running true. And now the fun part, let's talk about the colors that these are offered in. Just like the Lucky Craft, I only picked up one of these Yozuris, so let's go ahead and hop on the website and see what else they have. When I look at these Yozuri colors, I see a lot of shad patterns that look pretty good, but not near as good as the Lucky Craft. You know, stuff like the pearl shad, the sexy bone, these are ones that I would definitely pick up. The ghost sexy shad doesn't look too bad either. Their clear pro blue is not quite what I'm looking for. It seems like it's very blue. The natural shad, again, it looks pretty good on the website, but when I picked it up, it's really blue on the top. I'm not a fan of that. But their only offering that mimics perch or bluegill is their ghost perch, and that doesn't even look like a perch. All in all, I feel like Yozuri is missing a lot of color opportunities. Not only that, these look kind of cheap and they're not quite as natural as the stuff that Lucky Craft offered. I'm gonna go ahead and give them a 2 on colors. In summary for the Yozuri, it got a total score of 9, as we can see here. Not bad, not good, kinda okay. And that's kinda how I feel about this jerkbait. I don't think that I'm gonna buy any more. That being said, I'll still fish this now that I have it, and for $8, I'm not gonna complain. Next up is the Berkeley Cutter. I literally picked up 3 of these things because I was excited about them. I really thought for $6.55, which is what I paid, I thought that was pretty darn awesome, and that's why I got kind of excited. I'm not so sure I'm still that excited, but they've caught me fish and they're not bad. As far as action goes, these things actually do pretty good. I like their side to side. They cut really easily. They've got an erratic action. Sometimes they tend to roll up a little bit and kind of like dive up. It's kind of strange. The other thing that I actually don't like about them is the fact that they sit like this in the water. It's like I've never seen a bait fish sit nose down unless it's like feeding off of the bottom, but like a shad doesn't just sit there like this in the water. So I didn't think that that was supernatural. I wasn't a huge fan of that. Personally, when my jerkbait suspends, I want it to sit somewhat neutral. I don't want it to be like this. I don't want it to be like this. I want it to be kind of in here, maybe slightly nose down. That's not a big deal. But I don't want it to be like this. This thing is weirdly nose down. too nose down. So on one hand, I really like the action because it is doing everything that I would ask in a jerkbait, but on the other hand, I don't really like it just because of how it sits in the water. So I'm gonna give it a 3. Do the Berkeley Cutters run true? No. They do get down to the depth that they say they're going to, 4 to 6 feet. I definitely think that's about where they got. That being said, these things right out of the package, they straight up float. It's not as bad as the Lucky Craft because as I started to get closer to 50-degree water, it seems like they're starting to suspend a little bit better, but they still float. I did modify it just like I did with the Lucky Craft. At first, I put a suspend dot on the belly, but it was still super nose down, so I'm still playing with it a little bit. And I actually added some of that lead, like wire type stuff to the back hook. That's another way of weighting down a jerkbait if you want. Because that thing sits like this, I wanted to weight down the back a little bit more than the front. So not only does it suspend, but it sits a little bit more naturally in the water. Again, it is getting better as the water temperature climbs. That being said, as it's starting to suspend naturally, I'm getting to the point where jerkbait season is pretty much over. Because of that, just like the Lucky Craft, I'm going to give the Berkeley Cutter a 2. And now you're wondering, Ethan, what about the colors? Good question. Let's take a look on the computer. Also, as I'm getting this pulled up on my computer, I'm gonna be honest with you, I tried to get underwater footage of these things, but it's kind of hard when you don't have a swimming pool and you don't necessarily have a good place to film underwater. And so you can see a quick summary of how that worked out for me right here. Basically, the water was way too dingy and I could not get the jerkbait close enough to the camera. It was pointless. It was a waste of my time. But I tried, okay? I tried. Unfortunately, Berkeley's website is making this very difficult to look at all the colors at once, but I will click through. Their blue vapor, it looks okay. It's kind of like a pro blue. Looks all right. Their skeleton vapor, that's like a cheaper version of the color that I got with my Lucky Craft. When you look at the Lucky Crafts and some of the higher end jerkbaits, you see that they really look natural. But then you look at stuff like this purple glimmer color with Berkeley, it's very painted, it's not toned down, it doesn't really look natural. You know, for colors like this, you could definitely use them in like stained water and that's fine, but I'm looking for colors that are gonna look really good in that clear water. Okay, so I'm not gonna show you every color, but basically I'm filtering through and the baits look okay, but they don't have that high quality finish that we saw in some of the others. I will say that I am a fan of their gilly color. I think it's a pretty cool color, mostly because I've got a lot of pumpkin seed in my waters, and this really does a pretty good job of imitating them. So that is 1+ for them. Their bluegill colors are not too bad. That being said, after buying these, seeing them in person, looking at them on the website, and really doing a breakdown, I think these things are pretty cheap looking. They don't really have a very natural appeal to me, and so for that reason, I'm gonna go ahead and give them a 2. Again, this was the cheapest jerkbait though, so you have to remember that if you're gonna spend like $6.50 on a hard bait, you can't necessarily expect it to act like a $20 hard bait. I still think it's a good jerkbait. I mean, for less than $7, I'm catching quite a few fish, but it's just not quite as good as some of the other options. I have this cutter still in the box, haven't even thrown it yet. Anyways, the cutter gets a total score of 7. Not too hot, Cutter. Not too hot. You're getting beat. Also, I just realized that I'm not wearing a hat, and in about 97.2% of my videos, I'm always wearing a hat. Should I change that? Yes. The next jerkbait we're gonna talk about, ba-bam! Strike King. A little less talk and a lot more action, am I right? Okay, let's talk about action, is what I'm saying. As far as action goes on these Strike Kings, man, these things pretty much check the box. They very much go left, they go right, it's erratic. It very much looks like a bait fish trying to escape. They sit right in the water. They're kind of just like this. It looks exactly like what I want in a jerkbait. There is one small call out. Every now and again when I give it a hard twitch, it goes zip, and it kind of comes nose up. Not to say that's the worst thing in the world, but I do want it to stay in this kind of action back and forth the majority of the time. And for those reasons, I'm gonna give the Strike King jerkbait a 4 for action. But do they run true? Well, they say that they're gonna dive about 4 to 7 feet, and they say they're gonna suspend. Boom, they do both of those things. Quite frankly, I have found that whether I'm fishing these in about 40 degrees or 50 degrees, they've been consistently suspending. Just like the Yozuri, they do a pretty darn good job. Additionally, that 4 to 7 foot range, I do feel like this jerkbait's nice because I can work it pretty shallow, but if I want to, I can kind of crank it down and get it a little bit deeper. So it gives me some versatility on the water. 5 out of 5, it definitely runs true. Honestly, I'm gonna show this one on Discount Tackle's website because the Strike King website doesn't even show all their colors. Strike King, what are you doing? Come on. Okay, so I picked these up for $9.19, so just shy of $10. And you can see they've got a ton of color options. I love it when jerkbait manufacturers have a lot of colors because it really gives everybody, no matter where they live and what the local forage is, it gives them an option. When I look at these colors, it's very clear to see it's a Strike King bait. I mean, these are the same type of colors that they offer in their square bills, their lipless crankbaits, so on and and so forth. All in all, I feel like their colors are pretty good. You know, if you want a shad imitator, you can go with something like this natural shad. You can go with this clear water minnow. You can go with this crystal shad. If you want something that's gonna have some shine in dirtier water, get the clown. I got it, and it worked well in dirtier water for me. If you want something that's gonna be more of a bluegill type imitator, you've got these phantom perch, you've got this natural brim, you've got sugar daddy, which is also another yellow perch. The list goes on and on and on. They've got a Pro Gold, which is a great stained water color, really nice looking color. They've got strobe shad, which is pretty darn similar to that Lucky Craft I was using. They've got yellow perch, which literally looks exactly like a yellow perch. All in all, I am going to give Strike King a 4 out of 5 on colors. The only reason that I'm not giving him a 5 is because it's not quite that same quality of paint job that I saw in the Lucky Craft. I really feel like the Lucky Craft looks a little bit more realistic, but Strike King still offers a wide variety of colors, and they pretty much have an option for everyone, and they look pretty darn good. So I'm a pretty big fan of everything that Strike King is doing. Anyways, the Strike King, I tell you what, that dang thing gets 14 out of 15. That is the jerkbait to beat. Can the Rapala Shadow Rap do it? Well, let's see. I still actually have the Shadow Rap rigged up. This is a good opportunity to 1, cut it off, and 2, talk about my jerkbait combo. Okay, so before we get to the Shadow Rap, I do want to shout out this rod and reel because quite frankly, I'm in love with this rod for jerkbaits, and I wanted to give a quick tip. If you're looking for a rod for jerkbaits, I feel like this is a pretty good option for 130 bucks. That's a relatively budget-friendly rod, and I feel like this will also be good for other applications. Small crankbaits, small topwaters, that sort of thing. It's the Shimano Intenza. It's a 6'9" medium. Fast. I've really enjoyed this rod for jerkbaits. I throw these jerkbaits on 10-pound fluorocarbon, and I throw it on a high-speed reel. This happens to be that Daiwa CC80 that I recently did a review on. Regardless, the point is, this setup right here, I'm enjoying. I'm very much enjoying. Back to the jerkbaits. Rapala Shadow Rap. This happens to be the size 11. I like it. It's beautiful looking. Very nice. I don't think I've really fished with this on camera much, but I have caught quite a few fish in testing it. As far as action goes on this Rapala Shadow Rap, it's got a little bit different profile. It's a little bit more slim. It's narrow. It's kind of a different look. But I tell you what, it's got a nice action. It gets that good side to side that I'm looking for. Because it's a slimmer body, I think it has a little bit tighter wobble and it has a little bit less resistance. So it doesn't quite have that same like bounce to it that a normal jerkbait has. I really like it though. I feel like it's got a little bit different look than any jerkbait that I've used before, and for that reason I'm gonna give it a 4. I don't know what's holding me back from giving it a 5 because I do think that this thing's really solid. I guess there's just something about it that makes me hold back a little bit. All in all though, it's got an awesome action. The next question is whether or not it runs true. Now, Rapala says that this is a neutrally buoyant bait and it has a very slow sink to it. And that is exactly what I've found. I feel like it looks like it suspends, but it's just sinking ever so slowly in a lot of situations. The other thing is that they call this a 2 to 4 foot runner, and I will say with that shallower lip, this thing absolutely hits the depths they're talking about. You can work this thing through 1 to 2 foot of water if you want to, which a lot of jerkbaits you can't, so that's pretty awesome. So if you fish really shallow water, but you're still looking for that jerkbait action, this is a pretty good option. So as far as running true goes, this absolutely gets a 5 out of 5. It does exactly what Rapala says it's gonna do, and quite frankly, Rapala is basically the king of jerkbaits, so you can't really expect them to screw anything up. I'm a big fan. I think it's a neat jerkbait, I think it's unique, and I think that it will catch me a lot of fish. I will probably be buying more, but you're probably wondering, Ethan, what about color? Let's get right to it. First off, I don't even know what this color is. I actually like that color. That color looks really good. It's got that shimmer of blue, it's got that kind of olive back, it's got the natural fish scales. I feel like that looks like something that a bass would munch if it was sitting in front of its face. Got the albino shiner. I like that. Blueback herring. This blue ghost color is a little bit out there, but I tell you what, it's okay to incorporate some wonky colors. Ooh, bone. Big fan of their bone color. I like that. Carbon. Carbon is an interesting color. I gotta give a quick shout out to my buddy Chris out in Illinois. He actually mentioned this carbon color to me, and I screwed up and I didn't buy it yet, but I'll probably buy one of these at some point because he told me that it like works pretty good for him, and it's a very unique color. It's unlike any other jerkbait color I've seen out there, and quite frankly, that might be why he's having luck on it. He fishes areas that get a lot of pressure, and if you're using something a little different like this, it might be a good way to buy a few more bites. So that might be something I pick up. So as far as colors go, I really like what Rapala is doing. They've got a lot of cool colors. That being said, I am gonna knock them. Number one, I don't feel like their colors are quite as nice as those Lucky Craft ones. Lucky Craft totally set the bar. Number two, they don't really have very many bluegill options. They have like a perch here and there, they have the fire tiger, but but they don't really have something that imitates stuff other than shad and other bait fish. I feel like they're missing the mark by not offering a few of those colors. For that reason, I am going to give them a 3 because I think that Strike King does it just a little bit better. Again, all of this stuff is so subjective, so ultimately you might see Rapala as the best colors, and that's okay. I personally thought Lucky Craft had the coolest colors, followed by Strike King, and then Rapala is up there as well. Regardless, we have finally tallied up our rankings, and I believe that Strike King wins with 13 out of 15. Rapala and Lucky Craft tied for second, 12 apiece. Yozuri came in at a hot 9, and then Berkeley, sorry Berkeley, but you got dead last, you got 7. That being said, I'm still gonna fish your jerkbaits, don't worry. So we have worked our way through all 5 of these jerkbaits. I have a lot of treble hooks in my hands right now. I should probably put these down. All in all, I tell you what, I'm happy with all 5 of these jerkbaits I talked about today. Obviously, I shared with you some of my opinions, but I'm totally going to fish with all of these in the future. Maybe some of my opinions will change, and if they do, I'll certainly share those with you. That being said, hopefully today's video helped point you in the right direction of a jerkbait that's gonna work well for you without having to spend a lot of money. Hey you, if you have any other budget jerkbaits out there that you personally like, make sure to drop those in the comments below. Not only does it help me, but it helps the entire community because quite frankly, these are just 5. There's so many daggum fishing lures, I can't keep up with all this stuff, so I'm gonna rely on you to help me out. I think that's pretty much all I needed to say. If you have any other questions, feel free to drop them in the comments below. Otherwise, make sure to let me know what you thought of this video. This is certainly a new concept for me, so I hope you enjoyed it. We'll catch you next time.